On this episode of the Wise Counsel Project, we interviewed Taylor Scott from Atlanta's 104.7 The Fish Morning Show. Join us as Taylor provides wise counsel to men and women of faith. We're here with Taylor Scott from 104.7 The Fish, The Morning Show. Taylor, thank you for being with us here on the Wise Counsel Project.
Oh, sure. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to watch the episodes myself and get some wise counsel.
Well, stay tuned and watch Kevin's for sure.
Okay, yes.
Really, a lot of great nuggets in his interview. We started the whole Wise Counsel Project based upon Proverbs 13:20, and I have it highlighted there in front of you. If you don't mind, I could get you to read that for us,
Sure.
and then let me know your thoughts, if you would,
Okay.
on that verse.
Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm.
What does that mean to you?
Wow. Well, it's funny. It makes me think immediately back to high school and college, where you start taking on the persona of your friends a lot of times. Different groups that you hang out with, they affect your speech patterns and what you like, the clothing that you think is hip. And so the second half of the verse makes me think about that. You know, it's so important. We talked about it on our show, how we need to be praying that our kids choose good friends this school year. And I tell you what, walking with the wise and become wise, there are those people, those gems that you meet in life, and you hear about how they live their personal lives, and you're like, wow, they are the real deal. They're just as nice off the air, off camera as they are on, or at the office as they are at home. And I think that's a sign of a truly wise person, when they're the same no matter where they are.
My family and I attend Gwinnett Church, one of Andy Stanley's satellite churches through Northport Ministries. And last night, his sermon was talking about the importance of being in small groups, because the accountability that you have there. And our whole goal behind the Wise Counsel Project is to get people to come in, to help us all be accountable, help us learn from mistakes, maybe learn from success stories. And I would love to get your thoughts on what wise counsel you have been able to seek in your professional life.
Well, I think, honestly, when you think of wise counsel, it really started with my parents. I mean, they modeled for me every day what it means to work hard, what it means to try to serve God every day, and what it means to love each other. Because I'm one of those rare kids that got to grow up with mom and dad who are still together. They're still married after all these years, 50-some years. And so it started there, and then in my professional career, honestly, one of the first people who taught me a lot about doing radio on a day-to-day basis was Kevin, my co-host. I was only doing part-time radio when I first started working for him. So he really helped me unlearn some of the things I had learned, things like sounding like a news person, and you just need to sound real on the air. So that was really beneficial. And then there's been a lot of wisdom from women in radio, like Valerie Geller and people like that, who teach you how to be yourself on the air, be real and genuine and not fake. And that's a lot about what our show is about on The Fish, is about just being ourselves and living our lives on the radio, and yet not revealing too much. Sometimes my husband Glenn will censor me and say, okay, that's not a story
that's
for
off limits.
Yeah, exactly.
You and Kevin have quite a success story, being on air as a morning show since 2000, which we've talked is an eternity in radio, for a lot of people, a career. To what do you attribute the success of the morning show and 104.7 The Fish?
I would have to say, first of all, we're grateful for that success every single day. Sometimes we have to pinch ourselves and be like, we get to do this for a job. This is what our profession is. And also, we're grateful because we really do get to hang out with the best listeners in the whole world. I mean, they are just fun and genuine and right there alongside us, trying to live life and do life right. But I think the success of the show, the longevity of the show, would have to do with just the base goal of the show, and that's to represent the welcoming heart of God. And every day when we go in that studio, no matter whether we're having a bad day or what, we're hoping that people, when they listen to the show, when they hang out with us on The Fish, not just through the music, because the music does such a great job encouraging people and lifting people up, but also through what we say, that they might laugh when they thought they were going to cry, or feel encouraged when they thought they just couldn't make it through that day. And I think when you approach your job like that every single day, I think the Lord blesses that. I mean, that's the only reason I can say we're still on the air after 14 years here in Atlanta, because, man, you see radio shows come and go, and radio stations change formats all the time. And so to be here this many years later is just such a gift.
How do you prepare each morning when you're getting ready to get in front of the microphone? What goes through your mind?
Well, it starts at home. I mean, I try to do a devotion in the morning, even if it's a quick one, just to get myself in the right frame of mind. And as I come into the city, I see the skyline from the side. I live west, and you just say a little prayer, and you're like, okay, God, I don't know what you have for me to say today or what you need people to hear, but I pray that you'll make it all happen, because you just want to be that voice when he can use you. And we're always amazed. We're like, okay, we're not preachers, we're not teachers, we're not, we don't view ourselves leaders. We almost view ourselves like we're kind of doing this, like, hey, let's do life together and let's get through this day together. And the
One
fact
big
that,
small group.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that God can use that has always amazed us day after day.
When you come here, though, you said you're not ministers, you're not counselors, but do you see what you're doing as a ministry?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I don't think either of us, Kevin or I, would want to do any other format. We just feel like it's such a gift to be able to present that kind of music that reminds people that they're loved unconditionally and that God cares for them, and music that teaches them that even in their darkest moment, God is there with them. And then in between the songs, I mean, yeah, we view that as a ministry, because to be able to provide entertainment and laughs for families to be able to listen together, that is so rare in radio. I mean, there's so many times we talked to parents who, before they found the fish, they were ready to change the dial because there was something coming on that they didn't want the kids to hear, or they weren't ready. And we even approach the news as a ministry, because we know you guys can get your hard news sources from so many different places, and we want you to be informed. We want you to know what happened while you're sleeping, or what you need to be educated about coming up, or laws or elections. But we don't want your kids to be bombarded with things that they're just not ready to hear yet. And so we're very careful, and can even use the news to remind people to keep things in their prayers, which is such a different way to approach radio compared to other stations.
Well, when someone calls in and says, hey, Taylor, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with this deep, dark time in my life. And I know you get those calls in addition to those, hey, I've got this praise.
Right.
What wise counsel can you give to someone that is not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel?
A lot of times it's that hope that they're not alone that gets them through. And I think that's the beauty of what radio can do. Like you said, a big small group. I mean, we really view the Fish listeners as a community, a family. And even though one person's in their car driving to Cumming and another person's on their way to Alpharetta, when they hear that person call in, we know, because they tell us about it later, that they're right there with them. They're either empathizing with the same story, like that happened to me too, I'm going through a divorce too, or I just lost a child too. So they're not only empathizing, but then they pray for each other. Our listeners do, and it's just so touching to me that there's that much compassion right there on the surface, even in the middle of a busy commute.
It's not just a phrase, praying for you, collectively.
Exactly.
They're out there. Well, when you're here, you're surrounded by great uplifting music, everybody sharing the same goal within the Fish offices, and the Fish listeners talking about what an impact you guys have had. What happens though when you turn the mic off every day and you walk out the doors and the world happens? How do you keep that, call it Mountaintop Experience, how do you keep that great positive outlook when reality sets in sometimes?
I mean, it's hard. There's sometimes when you're ready to do a show and you think, okay, I have nothing to offer here. But you just, I think the biggest thing is you realize that that God can use your bad days for His glory too. And you may not see it right now. You may feel like, what good is going to come out of this? But if you just hang on to that hope that He's right there with you, you really do get through it. And it's funny. It seems like you look at the most famous comedians in our culture, and it comes from a deep, dark place, that comedy, that humor. And that kind of helps you through it too, because you realize, okay, this is not good right now. This is not funny in any way, but in a couple weeks, it could end up being a really great story on the air that might resonate with someone and make them feel like they're not so alone, or that they're connected to somebody else.
And you're in charge of the news here. You have a special way of trying to take some of those stories that may not be safe for the family to hear about and putting it into a safe filter, I guess.
Exactly.
How do you do that? How do you decide, that's just not something we need to approach at all?
A lot of times I picture my own nieces, like they're 10 and 7 right now. And I think, okay, if they're sitting in the car with my sister or my brother-in-law, is this okay? Is this something that, as a 10-year-old brain or a 7-year-old brain, that they're ready emotionally to handle this? And that helps me so much, because I think, ooh, that's just too much. That's too heavy for us right now. And the other thing I can do a lot of times is I can say it in a way that Mom and Dad know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. And the kids are, they're not going to ask what that is, or they're not going to think it's anything that they need to be intrigued about, because Mom and Dad know what Taylor's talking about. Right. But there's some stories, Gary, that I just decide, you know what, Mom and Dad can get that from another source, because it's just too dark for children. We want them to be able to keep that innocence and that joy. And sometimes what we leave out, I think, is the magic of what we call it 3 things you need to know. That's where the magic happens.